Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are back with volume 2 of my fall favorites. So in case you're new to my channel, I do this seasonal favorites video where I take an empty swatch wheel and fill it with these gorgeous colors, both new and old in my collection that I plan to wear for the upcoming season. So as always, I will have everything in the description box down below. But for now, go grab a warm drink and cozy up with me while I show you my favorites. The first polish I have is Holo Taco's Lowkey Blushing, and this came out just recently in the Down to Earth bundle for fall, and we've seen a couple of other shades similar to this releasing. The other most recent one I can think of is ILNP's Rosewood, which was also very beautiful, but this one just has a little bit more of that true pinky blush tone to it, which I just absolutely love. I am a sucker for these dusty, rosy blushes in the fall. I just think they are so elegant and so beautiful. Another shade I've really been loving is Mooncat's Sandviper from the pretty recent Midnight Rodeo collection. This one is a light pink beige kind of jelly that's really sheer, and it has a nice orangey to red kind of coppery shimmer. So it just has such a beautiful warmth and glowiness to it. Obviously on the first coat it's not that great, especially on the swatch wheel. I think it's a little bit more passable on the natural nail if anything, but this one builds up so beautifully. I just love the base color too. I know it might seem a little boring or dull to some people maybe, but that shimmer really makes it pop. Another new shade that I've been loving is Mooncat's Sin Eater, and this came out very recently in the Band of Misfits Quartet. And this is a deep wine purple filled with a subtle color shifting red to orange to green shimmer. So my bad for not recording the first coat of this, but I don't think it matters too much since I literally just watched it a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, this one definitely looks a lot more purple just on the swatch wheel here than it does when you actually wear it. I think it leans a lot more like a burgundy, where it's more of that reddish purple leaning shade. Either way, I think it is just still so beautiful. I just love red shimmers so much, especially when they're in a vampy, plummy, purple, reddish kind of base. So this one is just so gorgeous. But yeah, it was kind of throwing me off how purple it looked because as you see, like once I put my hand behind it, it definitely has more of a true like wine red kind of color. So that's the color I'm envisioning for the position in the swatch wheel. So the next shade I have is Essie's Bold and Boulder, and this actually came out last year in their Off the Grid collection for fall. So this was easily my favorite from that collection, and I'm still loving it this year. It's just such a classic, rich burgundy that you just can't go wrong with. I just absolutely adore these kinds of reds in the fall where they're very deep, very sexy, but still noticeably red. And it just has like a bit of that brownish kind of undertone. So it definitely is really dark, but not dark enough that it looks black or purple. Next up, I have the first of several Olive Ave polishes. This one is Goldstone, and it's described as a rich cinnamon red brown cream. So this actually came out in the Winter Rock Solid collection, which was a lineup of neutrals added to the Olive Ave lineup. And this one was definitely one of my favorites, if not my top favorite from that release, but it just immediately gave me fall vibes. So I have been waiting to show this color some love. It really is such a true warm cinnamon brown shade that is just so cozy. The next shade I have is Dimension Nails Owl Butterfly, and I actually don't know when this came out. I feel like I've had this in my collection for a couple of years now, but I am especially loving it for this year. I would describe this as a really warm, red-leaning terracotta, and I have just been in the mood for terracotta this fall. I think because I've just been taking care of more of my plants and getting a lot more terracotta pots, I love that like natural, warm, earthy color. So this shade is just satisfying that craving for me. I think this color is just so flattering, and it has such a luscious formula. I feel like I could get away with this in one coat. The next polish I have is Ave Hayride, and this is described as a light caramel cream. So as you probably know, I'm definitely pretty picky when it comes to certain types of colors, especially in the fall, namely like any kind of pruggly color, including mustard yellows. And I would kind of consider caramel colors in a very similar vein where, I don't know, they're very hit or miss for me. And this one is my favorite one so far. It's definitely very light and a little bit on the yellow side, but there's just something so yummy and warm about this shade that I just think is so flattering, especially paired with the shade right next to it. I think it looks so good. The next polish I have is Zoya's Honey, and I'm pretty sure this came out in the Sunset palette a couple of years ago, but maybe you might remember it from my favorite color series when I did my favorite yellows video a couple of months ago. This is one of the deeper yellows that I shared that I just really love in the fall. I just think they're so beautiful. I know it looks really bright here, especially compared to Hayride right next to it, but if you go back and watch that video, I have a collage at the end so you can see just how deep and muted this is compared to very true like sunshine yellows. So yeah, this one is absolutely gorgeous. I cannot recommend it enough, especially if you're not a huge fan of mustard yellows, but you still want yellow in the fall. The next favorite I have is Cirque Colors Rockaway, and this is described as a dusty teal cream, which I don't know if I fully agree with that. I mean, I know I'm not the best at understanding what color teal is, but to me, I would call this more of like a celadon, maybe. It just has such a beautiful, soothing kind of color to it, and if you watched my favorite greens video, then you know I have just really been loving these blue leaning greens so much. There's something just so beautiful and earthy about them, and I much prefer them over the traditional yellow leaning greens or olives that we see in the fall. I just think this one is so much better. The next polish I have is Orly's Metamorphosis, and this came out in last year's Surrealist collection, and it is a teal crully base with a complementary copper shimmer. I don't know what it is about this color. I mean, as you can see, it looks kind of similar to Cirque's Rockaway, but I would say this is more of a true teal, like it has more of a blue leaning color to it. But there is just something so beautiful to this color combination. It's so unique to my collection, and I just absolutely adore it. The shade was such a standout for me last year. It just took me by surprise how much I really loved it, because it's just so unlike colors that I normally go for. But yeah, I just think this one is so pretty, and I'm so excited to wear it this season. Next up, we have another familiar shade from Ave. This is Josler, which I just shared in my favorite blues video last week. This one is described as a deep teal peacock blue cream, and I have been loving it. I think it is just so beautiful and so unique, especially when you think of typical like navy blues for fall, which I still absolutely love, and we'll see that next. But this one is just such a fun, different shade of blue that I haven't worn a lot of lately, and so I only just picked up this color too. It's fairly new to my collection, but yeah, when it comes to blues, I just don't have that many of this like peacock color, and I am obsessed. So my navy blue pick is Ave's Middle of the Night, which just launched in her Kaleidoscope collection for fall a couple of weeks ago. This one is described as a twilight navy blue cream. So it's definitely picking up a little bright here on camera, almost like a blurple kind of color, but it really is like a very typical navy blue. It's just not super, super deep where it looks almost black. Like even in low lighting, I think you'd be able to tell that this is a very dark blue. And I really love that because I usually don't go for shades that are so dark they're almost black. I know that they're very moody and, you know, very typical for fall, but if you want a deep blue that still is blue, I would recommend this one. Next, we have ILNP's Currant, and this came out in their very recent Fall Serenade bundle. This one just immediately became a favorite of mine. I mean, I love the whole bundle in general. I think I said Rosewood was my favorite, but this one was definitely very close behind. It's this decadent, blackened currant purple that is just so lush and yummy for the season. I'm just such a sucker for these really deep, like berry-leaning shades. And this one is just absolutely delicious. This one has a great formula that's easily opaque in just 2 coats. And just like the last shade, I really love that this one can look really dark depending on the lighting, but you can still tell it's purple. So I really love sparkly purples in the fall, and this one I am so excited to wear. This is Potion Polish's Spiced, which I picked up just a couple of months ago when I did my first ever Potion Polish haul, and I just was so excited for this one. It's a really deep mulberry purple jelly base that is absolutely packed with that red shimmer, but this one also shifts to a bronze and copper in extreme angles, so you get kind of like an orangey glow, and there's also obviously a bunch of hollow flakies in there too. So yeah, this one is just super gorgeous all around, so vampy, but has that gorgeous red glow, and that twinkling of the hollow is just perfection. Another sparkly purple I love for this season is Painted Polish's On Cloud Wine, and this launched way earlier in the beginning of the year, and I knew right away when I swatched this one that I was gonna be so obsessed with it for the fall, and here we are. I am so happy to finally have the chance to just indulge in this shade. It is just absolutely breathtaking. It's another super deep, rich burgundy wine colored base, and it's absolutely packed with these micro holographic glitters, so it's really sparkly, super, super beautiful. I just cannot get enough of this. I love this formula from Painted Polish, and just this color in combination with the formula is the vampy, sparkly purple of my dreams. It is just stunning. So I've really been craving such rich, yummy browns this season. So the first one I have is Holo Taco's Fairy Tale, and this one came out in the Magnetic Magic collection last winter. So this has a yummy chocolate brown base with a lighter brown shimmer, and there's also a dainty holographic sparkle outside of the magnetic shimmer. So this one is just so, so pretty and cozy to me. This was my favorite from the lineup. Like, I thought the other shades were beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I was just so enamored by this polish. I feel like I had never really seen a brown magnetic before, so it just was so new and unique to my collection, but I just think there's something super cozy about this shade. I absolutely love it. The next brown I have is OPI's Brown To Earth, which came out in last year's Fall Wonders collection, which I didn't really like that much, but there were a few shades that were standouts to me, this being one of them, which might sound a little funny because it's just a brown cream and very basic for the season, I guess, but I don't know, there is just something super yummy and rich about a good chocolate brown. Like, it just reminds me of brownies or hot fudge or whatever. Like, I'm not even a big chocolate person. I can only have like one bite before it's too much for me. So having it on my nails, I guess, is just my preference. And this one is just delicious. I love how rich and creamy it is. It's so, so good. And for an even darker shade, we have Holo Taco's Espresso Your Holo, which came out in the Holo Barista bundle earlier this year. And this is a crushed holographic formula in a dark brown espresso shade. I really love this one when it came out, even though it was like the middle of winter and I'm not really craving such deep brown rich shades that are like borderline black, but there is just something so luxurious about this color, and especially with the crushed holo formula. I'm just such a fan of that whole bundle. Honestly, it was hard to decide which shade to include because they all were really great, especially for this time of year, but there is just something so indulgent about such a deep brown shade like this one. And I love that dainty holo sparkle. This next one shouldn't be a surprise, especially if you watched my favorite Flakies video. This is a Holo Taco's Fallen Flake Taco, and it is described as a multi-chrome foil flake topper in a clear base. So head on, you'll see a lot of copper and some magenta flakies, but they do shift to green and gold, so it just really looks like fallen leaves in a bottle. It is just such a beautiful topper, so perfect for this time of year. And rounding out my fall favorites this year is Mooncat's Fake Halo, and this is described as a rose gold linear holographic. So I'm not even sure if I would agree with that description of rose gold because it's just not as rosy as I would think. So I personally would call this a little bit more of like a champagne gold or something. Either way, it is just such a beautiful polish. I'm pretty sure this is one of Mooncat's best sellers. It's definitely one of my favorites from their whole catalog. There's just something so classic about this shade. I just think this color pairs so well with any of the other shades that I have in my wheel. It's just like a perfect accent color or perfect for nail art. I love using this on its own too as like a subtle gradient French tip design. It's just so pretty. You just can't go wrong with a shade like this. And finally, here's a look at my completed swatch wheel with top coat. So I'm not gonna lie, it does bug me a little bit that Sin Eater looks so out of place because it's very blue leaning here on this clear swatch wheel. But if we ignore that, I still love everything else, especially this rainbow section. I am just such a sucker for a rainbow palette, no matter the time of year. And having this like muted fall version is so satisfying to me. And yeah, definitely a lot of creams this year. I don't know what it is about them that I'm just craving creams for fall, but we still have a couple of specialty finishes as we get into the deeper polishes like the purples and browns, which I don't know, I'm just craving them so much. So I'm really happy with this lineup overall. There's definitely a lot of shades I could have included too. I have so many favorites, but I still love how this wheel looks overall. So here it is a little bit more zoomed out so you can see the full wheel. Again, let's maybe ignore how Sin Eater at the top there is not really looking as red as it does in the bottle or on the nails. But I also wanted to share last year's swatch wheel, which I'm holding in my right hand. And even though I didn't repeat any of the shades from last year, I feel like they definitely still have very similar vibes. But I think last year's had a few colors that were a lot like brighter and just not as deep or muted as this year's. But then other colors definitely do have similar tones to them. So I think I have a type when it comes to fall colors, but I would love to know what you think of these two and if you have a favorite. So that wraps up my fall favorites for 2023. So I cannot wait to hear what you think of my picks this year because obviously I really love them. Even though I know this wheel definitely looks pretty similar to last year's wheel, I hope that isn't too disappointing, especially considering how different my two summer wheels were. Like this year was so much brighter and like more neon compared to last year's. And even though I said some of the shades feel a little bit darker, namely the kind of like rainbow sort of colors, I feel like others are kind of like the same. So I don't know. I hope that's not disappointing. I am still very much obsessed with this wheel, but like I mentioned, I had a really hard time narrowing down my favorites because there are just so many beautiful shades that have come out or that are already in my collection. So I kind of wanted to do a little honorable mentions kind of segment to show some love to some other polishes that I definitely am gonna be loving on this season, but I just couldn't really fit into my wheel. So starting with none other than ILNP's entire Harvest collection from last year. I think in my last year's wheel I shared 2 of the polishes, but honestly all of them deserve to be a part of it. But if I had to choose just one, I think I would choose Autumn because she is just that girl. Like, I'm really feeling the sparkly browns this year, and Autumn for sure is alongside these. She's just so pretty. I can't recommend that one enough if you haven't tried it or if you are not a big fan of brown polishes. I think that one has enough warmth in it and sparkle that it just is so pretty for the season. Another shade that I'm really excited to be wearing this season is Olive Ave's Ginger, which just came out in the Kaleidoscope collection. This is just a really pretty pumpkin orange that's like a little bit muted, and it has this delicate holographic sparkle, which I always kind of complain that I don't love Walker's holographics because they're very subtle. So if you do like a subtle holo sparkle where it's literally like barely there, you might like her holos. But this one, honestly, I think the subtleness of it just works in its favor so well because it just gives it like this really nice, cozy, pumpkin spice, cinnamon sugar vibe that I just think is so pretty. And oh my gosh, I just can't wait to wear this as a full manicure. I think it's gonna look super gorgeous. And lastly, I really wanted this perfect like olive green, but I just don't have it in my collection, and it's not one that I can even think of that like exists at the moment. So I need your help with it because honestly, it's gonna be so silly, but this pumpkin is probably like the closest, which I know it's hard to tell because it's velvety and, you know, like looks light here, dark over there, but I'm looking for a green that's like this kind of olive where it's really deep. So it's not like the olive that you see in the highlights, but more so like the shadowy parts. I think the closest is Olive Ave's Wild, which also just came out in the fall collection, but that one has like a gold shimmer. So honestly, it kind of looks like this pumpkin in a way, but I want some, oh my gosh, yeah. You see this like dark green here? I want something like that. That's just like a really deep olive, but not too much yellow because you know how I am with yellow leaning greens. So something along those lines. If you guys know of a shade that looks like this, please let me know because I definitely think my wheel is missing an olive green kind of shade, and I never thought I would be the one to say that. But let's call it character development and leave your recommendations down below. But anyway, I hope you liked today's video. Don't forget to leave me any thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.